Welcome back, everyone. This is Rich Jarvis with the Epic Investor Podcast. I'm here with James and Jason, and we are here to talk about passive income and actually redefining the definition. What does it actually mean? And some of the biggest mistakes aspiring investors make when they think of passive income, instead of valuing their time, they end up trading it for money and just creating another job. So let's dive in. So true passive income allows investors to focus on other pursuits while keeping focused on what they do best, but it frees them up, their time and effort, so they don't have to continue adding to operational issues or time or things they have to go do in order to make it happen. So that's what we're going to dive into. So I want to start with a story. I was at a investor networking event, and an aspiring investor came up, and we were talking about what they were wanting to accomplish and do. And I asked him, so what the strategy was? And he's like, well, above all else, I want to create passive income. And I'm like, that's great. Tell me more. And he goes, yeah, I'm going to start doing fix and flips. And I was like, oh, okay. So tell me more. And we started learning. And it was interesting because this investor was putting the definition of passive income in the realm of fix and flips. All he was doing was creating another job for himself. He does this, he has to be there, he has to do it. It generates an income, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to call it passive income, I think that's the issue. And that's what we're trying to redefine and understand what is truly passive income. There's a book called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. He's got some great points through there. And one of the things that he says is, above all other things that he could value, he values freedom above all else. Freedom to him is the most important piece. And one of the things he said early on in his life, he considered his time worth $5,000 an hour. Imagine this kid thinking his time's worth $5,000. And he said, at the time, it was more of a mindset. And he goes, but I actually lived years where I was paid far more than my $5,000 an hour throughout that year. What was an interesting take to that was, until people value their time, they'll continue trading it for money.
I remember, Rich, the first company that I had been asked to manage as part of a small private equity group. So I was trying to prove myself and, very green. I was in my late 20s. One of the members of the board, for all intents and purposes, my boss, he calls and says, how are things going? And I'm out in the warehouse packing orders, fulfilling shipments. And he's like, well, how often do you do that? And I said, I come out here, a couple times a day just to help and get in the trenches and, be part of the team. And he says, Jason, I love your intention, but I don't pay you to fulfill orders. I pay you to scale companies. And, at first you kind of have to swallow that, right? Like, dude, I'm out here like busting my butt and, making inroads and building bridges with team members. But his point was well taken, right? Like, we have people that can help do that, and you should go motivate them and give them a hoorah and high five and bring pizza on Fridays. But my responsibility and my wages were that of vision and scale and growth and real impact, right? To multiply the company. So yeah, it makes total sense.
I see a lot of times people will take the easy road. They'll end up doing all of this busy work, and the busy work isn't the highest and best use of their time, right? How does that translate over to investments? And so there's a story of the farmer and the orchard. So if you can imagine a farmer, he goes out and he makes his money by harvesting apples, right? So he plants his trees and he goes out and he works every day and he harvests those apples every year. And he makes a good living, but everything that he does is directly related to what he can do. Versus the orchard. And what he does is, he gets the effort of getting the orchards planted, but then he brings on his teams, those that can take care of the trees and those that can, do all the watering and the picking and the pruning, and he pays them a fee to take care of it. But every year, those apples still get produced, and then those profits continue to get delivered to the owner, regardless of how much time he spends on the orchard or not. A lot of aspiring investors confuse passive income with just creating another job and creating another way to earn money. And you can't scale that if you're the one that has to be there to do it. If people can just focus on the highest and best use of their time, talents, abilities, how they get paid, and if they focus on that and then put their money to work, where they don't have to be there and that money can go and we can experience that compounding effect, right, over time and the joys of those upsides, not worry about the downside, just but it's in the and working for you. Can you see the difference between true passive income, which does not require you or your efforts or your talents to be there to do it, versus someone who wants to go out and start a new business, but it's just a job for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, the first story that comes to mind for me is actually within my family and close friend group. I have lots of family and friends who are in the medical field in various respects, and they've had great careers and success, and they've loved what they've done. But one thing I've heard consistently said is that it's what you just said. They have to be there. They have to be there for money to come in. Versus other friends of ours who own businesses, they're making money while they sleep. We have a family friend here in town, actually, who they own one of the major car washes in Boise, and it's just that concept of people are getting car washes right now and they will be tonight and they don't have to be there on site. They haven't created a second job for themselves. They have to be there in person. They can go where they want. And of course, they're still working on the business, but overall, they don't have to be there. So it's worth mentioning that because it's one of those things you have to keep in mind. We have discussions with investors all the time who, as you mentioned, Rich, they confuse passive income with another job. And it's like fix and flip's a perfect example. That can be a great pathway if you actually want to do that work. But then it really isn't passive income. You better like that actual job, the actual routine and the duties that come with that. Versus if you just want passive income, you have to take a different route. It doesn't require you to be there.
Yeah. Or they get the systems and processes in place, right, to do fix and flips and be able to scale it so they treat it like a business rather than a job.
Where does the confusion come in? Is it that they don't really know what they want, or is it that they think that that's what that looks like? Are they looking too far into the future instead of the here and now?
I think they're looking far in the future of the benefits of what they want, but they want it all now. And so it turns into, instead of that slow and steady, right? That wealth creation over time, it turns into, how can I make as much money as possible right now, and not understanding the importance of teams and the structure of projects and how to bring those together so they can work for you. They feel like they have to do it alone, and they're afraid of what they don't know. And that fear, I think, keeps them from bringing in, or they'll hear, well, I heard partnerships is risky. So you bring people in, something goes wrong and everything goes sour, right? Especially with family. And while that's true, does that mean we should never do a partnership again? And so I think it's that fear of failure and what are the risks of things, and then things that they don't know, they stay away from. So they do something that's, so they've lived in a house, they've sold a house perhaps, and maybe they made some money on the appreciation. So that's something that they know. But I think they miss the piece of working on a business instead of just in it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that they're looking 10 years down the road of what it's supposed to look like. And, you kind of lose the forest from the trees and what it's going to take. I had a brother-in-law, he bought 100 empty lots, and he intentionally wanted to do this. So it wasn't an example of a mistake, but maybe it rings truer for this. But he bought 100 lots and he built like 8 houses at a time. And once those houses sold, it would fund the next 8 houses and so on and so forth. And over like a 5-year period, he built 100 homes. He sold 60 of them. 60 paid for the full project, and then he kept the 40 for retirement income. But for him, it was a 5-year project. He's going to work his tail off for 5 years, and then he achieved his reward of passive income. He hired a property management company, and now it's passive, right? But it was calculated, it was methodical, it was intentional, instead of thinking that this is going to be mailbox money, in 6 months. And that, how terrible of a realization to feel like you had made it, and yet you're buried now under a ton of work.
Yeah, and what's amazing with that is now you can take those proceeds and use that to do more. and even put it, if your highest and best use is building those homes, that's what you should focus on, right? But then put money to work in other projects and benefit from that.
After he was done, he kind of took like a 8-month hiatus, and he just got so itchy. So now he built like 2 multifamily because he's really good at that and he enjoys it. So
yeah, highest and best use.
Highest and best use of time. Yeah.
Love that.
Rich, you kind of mentioned a few times the taking the easy road is something you often see. Do you think that's a function of why there could be a conflict with this? Like, obviously, in the fix and flip example, that's not an easy path. There's tons of work involved with that. But is that the easier path because maybe it takes a lot more work and creativity to think about the things that have to happen to scale the fix and flip model from a job into a business where you've leveraged all these other resources and a platform and structure and systems? Is that a core of the issue, you think, or could it be something else?
I think this is from the test of time. You think about the story of Moses, right? Holding up that stick and said, those that were bitten by those snakes, right? All they had to do was look, but that was so easy. They said, well, I can't do that. So they had to make it hard. I think we've been struggling at the human race from the beginning. One of the things in the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, he says, when you're looking at decisions or crossroads, run uphill, meaning, take the one that's going to be hardest now, that takes a lot more effort. Because if you do that now, the end result is usually much better than taking the easy path now, which in the long run is much harder. There's another example. It's the vending machine versus the food truck. So if you can imagine someone, going out and wanting to start a business, and so they create this food truck, and their food truck, so they work night and day, they stock it, and they're the ones that are there. If they stop working, they stop getting paid. Versus, someone who puts a vending machine that's in high demand at a location and pays someone a fee to restock it and keep the maintenance going. You might not make as much at the time, right? So I think that's part of the problem. The easy way out would be, I got to make more money than that, so I've got to do something bigger that I'm in control of, or like that food truck, right? But what happens to that vending machine when he takes those profits and gets another one, and then another one, and then he has vending machines all over, other people maintaining them, and he's just collecting those profits. The hard part, I think, or the hard road is going through the effort and putting that together and being consistent at growing that. If you truly want to value the benefits of passive income, you have to start with valuing your own time and stop trading your time for money. Working on the business rather than in the business. Stop creating jobs for yourself and start creating wealth, creating assets for yourself. Redefine what passive income is to be truly passive. And when you get out of that mode and start focusing on being able to scale yourself, you're not tied to wealth creation on just yourself. You can start adding all of the different channels to help build that wealth and create that passive income.
I love that. I think that, and I think you said it best at the end there, like identifying exactly what it is that you want, what your best use of your time. There's the freedom. Otherwise, you continue to even when you think you've left the rat race, you're in a new rat race of trying to figure out, what you really want to do with life. And as soon as you find it, I agree with you, and you've got the infrastructure to free yourself of it, do it. Don't delay. I mean, start utilizing compound interest and fly.
Yeah. Yeah. And start valuing your time so you focus on the highest and best use of what you can do, and then let your money work for you in every other area. Well, that's it for today, everyone. I sure appreciate it. If you subscribe, like, reach out to us. We'd love to hear your stories, and just appreciate you. Until next time, this is the Epic Investor Podcast.